Welcome, Strategy Battle Gamers, to another GBHL YouTube video. You're here with your host GBHL Tom and, well, maybe GBHL Damien. We're back for another, I say we're back, mainly I'm back for another video in our Fall of the Necromancer week, and it is an army showcase. Just a little bit of a behind the scenes of how we work here in GBHL South. I'm at the moment going to be doing this video for you whilst Damien is editing
The
Palantir, amongst other things.
38. So
yeah.
Probably going back in time here.
Yeah. Are you doing the sketch now?
No, that's coming later.
Sketch later.
With any Tom Army showcase, I like to sit in the background just to keep it in check and check that it doesn't all go to hell.
So I have done an army showcase before, and that was my Hunter Orc and Gundabad army, the Azog's Hunter army. And that got a really good response, so I thought, you know what, why don't I wait another 3 months and then do another hobby vlog. Thank you very much for all the lovely comments on that. I would have loved to do another army showcase. I've just been very lax recently and haven't got my bottom into gear and done one for you. But yes, please, if you do enjoy this video, when I do get around to talking about the army, comment below, and maybe that would prompt me to do some more for you. But anyway, I thought that given we're doing the Fall of the Necromancer week, it would be great to do an army showcase of the models that were released at the time. And one of my favourite armies when I first kind of got into the game was the Wood Elf army. And this was all released, as we've been talking about previously this week, in the Fall of the Necromancer book. So here are the models that I've got, and it's pretty standard, a big one box of 24 Wood Elves, and then we've got some heroes in there: Thranduil, Legolas, a Wood Elf Captain, a Banner Bearer, and then 3 Sentinels, and then at the back, we might talk about him a bit later, Radagast the Brown. Because he wasn't released in the Fall of the Necromancer, but he's kind of included in that theme. So I thought, given that we don't really see the old Radagast model that often, that I'd chat about him a little bit as well. I got this army pretty early on in my Lord of the Rings career, as it was. I started playing in 2006, which is the year in which the Fall of the Necromancer was released, but I started just after that. Got the Mines of Moria set to start with. I always felt that the elves were really cool and wanted to get some elves to start with. I got some Haldir's elves, the metal bowmen first, but then really wanted an army of them. And at the time, the Wood Elves was the only real plastic box set that you could get of elves. I mean, you could get the Last Alliance elves, but they were mixed in with the Númenóreans. So the logical route was to get a box of Wood Elves. So I did just that. And I really loved the Sentinel models as well. I'll come on to them, and I got them and the command pack, and I remember going into Games Workshop and getting all of this. Where to start? So perhaps if we just talk about the basic troops first. So we talked about these guys in the videos previously this week in terms of their profile, but yeah, they are very, very good models in terms of the game. Is he going to focus? Maybe I have to put him down. Very good models in terms of the game. There's mixed thoughts about the models themselves in terms of how good they are. The issue I found with a lot of them is that they had mould lines over the face, which meant that you could lose detail by when you were doing the filing of these models. Now, I painted these back when I was doing my AS level exams. So I'd have been 17, so it's about 8 years ago when I painted these. So it's...
Were you born?
A fairly long time ago. Damien was nearing his 30s at the time. But yeah, I was doing my AS levels, and I remember back in the day that you had study days where you were meant to be revising all day. I kind of limited myself to 4 hours revision a day, and then for the rest of the day I sat in the garage and painted Wood Elves. That kind of happy memories / stressful memories of doing some revision for AS levels. But yeah, these are very old models from me. So in terms of the quality of the painting, they're not up with my models where they are now, but I'll talk you through how I painted them and all of that stuff as well. So here is a normal wood elf. Is he going to focus? It's hard doing it with the one hand. And he's kind of focusing not very well. I can't put my hand behind it because I have to hold the model. Ah, there we go. He's working. So yeah, here is a wood elf warrior. Now the difficulty with these guys is they're very green, and you're trying to distinguish between different colours on them. And I've not really done that to a great extent. It's hard to tell because of the shadowing. But I've got kind of a dark green cloak, which you can see on the back, and then that kind of comes around on this front neck piece. Then I've got kind of a blue sash, brown boots, a browny green kind of jerkin piece, and then a turquoisey green and a slightly lighter green. I mean, they're all kind of similar-ish colours mixed together, and I could have been a bit more had a bit more stark contrast between these colours, but I quite like them looking a bit more camouflage rather than being really bright, so that's why they kind of blend a little bit into one another. And then then the elven blondish hair. So they're not my best miniatures, but this was at a time when I didn't use any washes whatsoever, so bearing that in mind, I think that they're pretty reasonable in terms of how they've come out. But yeah, that's a standard wood elf warrior, and you'll notice that he has a spear on his back. And the reason why I've got a spear on his back, this one is probably one of the less good ones. Let's jump to this chap here. No, I'm saying they're all less good. This chap who has it on everywhere. The reason that I have the wood elf spears on the back is because this was my first competitive army, the one that I took to tournaments, and wood elf spears on the archers are good for a number of reasons. One, because they can parry, which is an excellent rule for the wood elves, and the second is because they can spear support the front rank, which meaning you don't really have to manoeuvre after your battle line has been charged, which is really useful to have the bowmen in the back rank. So yeah, those are the wood elf bowmen. I think there are 7 on show today, but there is an 8th one. I just haven't brought it here to Damon's today for some reason. It didn't make it into my case. So yeah, those are the wood elf bowmen, and the poses are all right. I quite like this running one, and then a few just firing. My favourite one is the static. This chap, the static pose, and probably least favourite is this one, firing up. But yeah, those are the 4 poses that you got from the box. And they are very effective models in the game, and you see quite a lot of them on the tournament scene. Okay, so next up we could go on to the Elven Blades, and these chaps were painted in the exact same way, the same greens and maybe turquoisey greens and a bit of blue on the sash. If he focuses. There we go. So there we have this chap. You can see he has throwing daggers as his side. I mean, you can just give these, they don't have to be necessarily modelled on as throwing daggers. But yeah, these guys are very fragile, defense 3, easy to take down, but can be very effective with the Elven Blade and with throwing daggers. This chap gets a lot of bad publicity because it looks like he's smelling his own armpit, but I quite like him. He's just running. I quite like the pose, but others do not. Again, he's got the throwing daggers. You can see the kind of the gold pattern that I've done on the quiver. isn't really showing up, and the reason for that is that this model's so old, and gold paint, especially on the enamel side, it's a funny material, and if you rub it, it'll come off eventually. So Damien enjoyed that. Clearly. But yeah, if you rub it, it'll come off. Yeah, that's the problem with enamel gold paint. And yeah, I don't really know the best way around it, because I didn't really want to have to varnish the models for fear of them changing colour too much or me messing it up. So that's why on my older models the gold paint isn't really to the same standard as it was when I started, because first and foremost I play with these models. So anyway, that's the Elves with Elven Blade. And then we have the Wood Elf Spearmen, which really were quite game changing, as we've discussed, in terms of when they were released. I've got two of the same type there. I need this one. So yeah, here they are. These are the 4 poses, and they are very, very effective thanks to their Wood Elf Spear, which can parry, and they're very cheap at 8 points. And again, same colour scheme being applied for these guys. So yeah, I can't remember too much about when I actually painted them, and to be honest, because I don't use the Games Workshop paints, I can't really tell you what exact colours I used. I know that the main green on the cloaks is matte 80. It's not really going to be of any use to anybody, but yeah, I just picked out some greens and some blues, basically. So those are the normal troops, but then we move on to the Sentinels, and you get 3 different poses, and these are very cool models. The first one is firing his bow. Now the proportion of his head is the only thing that's a little off on this model. His head's perhaps a bit too large, but I do really like the harp that's on his back. It does look cool. And again, you can see the gold's kind of rubbed off a bit on that. But yeah, a cool model. The next one is playing a flute, or similar woodwind instrument. Fingers are getting in the way, but I really like him, and he again has a bow, but this time on his back. And the final one's a little odd. He's a horn blower, but he doesn't get a horn. He's got what looks like an elven blade, but it's actually just a long dagger. They don't actually get elven blades, the Sentinels, and he doesn't have a bow or a quiver on, even though the profile always takes a bow. So a little odd, but I think he's a really cool model. And if I had to choose one Sentinel model to take to a tournament, I'd probably choose this. Well, I'd probably choose this one just so he has the bow, so it's obvious to the opponent. But then I think this one is probably my favourite one, the Hornblower. Those are the 3 models, and back in the day at £6, that was a very, very good buy. And given that they take up 75 points, a cheap way to fill up the points in an army for anyone who was starting. So that's the Sentinels. Then we move on to the command set that you could buy at the time, which was these 2 guys, a captain and a banner bearer. Now the captain looks very similar to the normal Wood Elves, as you'd expect. Can I get him to show up okay? There we go. And you can tell that I've made a little bit more effort on making the colours stand out on this guy. The blue I've highlighted up with a lighter blue on the sash there, so it stands out more. Will it focus properly? Better. And then I've spent a bit more time highlighting his hair on the back. And the thing is, it's a lot easier to paint this guy relative to the plastic minis. The plastic miniatures, the detailing on them, I mean, whilst reasonably good is not as good as the metal ones. So I always found these metal characters much easier to paint. But I think he's a really cool captain. For an elf captain, he's pretty overpriced if you compare him to the named heroes. That's why you don't really see him. Relative to normal heroes, he's obviously very good. But when you have the array of named heroes that are in this list, it's easy to see why this guy is very rarely taken. But he is a cool model. And then we have the banner bearer, who is essentially the same pose as this Sentinel, but with a banner. And the banner you had to draw on as freehand, which was a bit of a pain. But this is me 8 years ago doing some freehand. I think my banner freehand has got a bit better since then, but it was a reasonable effort at the time, I think. If it focuses. But yeah, he's a cool banner bearer, but there is another one who I did want at the time, who I couldn't get because there's one in the source book itself that was never produced or never sold. So I'm sure that Kev and people like that who collect all the models that have ever been produced ever, even the ones that weren't released, he probably has one, but I've never seen the other banner bearer in existence.
It's a good sketch this week.
Damien's enjoying himself. I hope you're enjoying this behind the scenes window into the sketch editing process.
It's the same joke. They've seen it by now. It's Dan Lennon again. It's the same joke.
It's the same joke. So yeah, those are the kind of unnamed heroes and elite troops and warriors, and now we move on to the named heroes. So I think I'll probably start with Thranduil rather than Legolas. Here is Thranduil from the White Council box. And will he focus? There we go, kind of. So yeah, Thranduil, really cool model. I think he looks arguably better from the back in terms of he's got a very nice cloak. I like the pose. I don't think my job on his face is as good as it could be, but bear in mind that this was a while ago when I made this. But yeah, I've gone for a slightly lighter green on his front tunic, or whatever you're going to call it, just so he stands out a little bit from the rest of the models. And I did his staff in a brown colour rather to represent wood rather than the white colour that we see in the source book. But you can see that this model's very much been used in game. The sword's a bit bashed and the silver's been coming off a bit. There's a bit of a chip on his shoulder plate there, where you can see the silver through. So yeah, and yeah, in general just a bit more worn down, but this is because Thranduil has been used reasonably often when I was playing with my elves competitively. So that's Thranduil. And then we have Legolas. Now this Legolas I actually painted up later. So here he is. So he's going to focus. It's really frustrating because I get the shadow of the light from the camera. But here is Legolas, and it's the really cool pose of him standing on the rock, as you can see, and this is a fine cast version. And he was painted for my Hobbit Mirkwood Force as opposed to my old style Mirkwood Force, because I also have the Mines of Moria Legolas, which is the one that I used to use. But this is my more updated Legolas, and again he's got a similar colour scheme. The same colour for the cloak, really, the same for the I've used red for the arrowheads, as I did with my Wood Elves. But I really like this model. But I think that if I was putting a list together, I may be tempted to do Thranduil and the Captain rather than Legolas if I was just doing it for fun, just because you see Legolas a lot and you don't see the Captain very often. And now we're focusing on all the stuff in the background, which is not what you want. But yeah, this is the Helm's Deep Legolas, but I don't think it really matters which one you use within this force. So anyway, that's the army in terms of the Wood Elves, but I also wanted to show you the old Radagast because you don't see him that often with the new Hobbit Radagast. So here he is. Well, there's Damien's bottom in the background.
Enjoy.
So here is the old Radagast. And again, this was one of the very early models that I painted, so I'd say again that maybe I was even 16 when this was done. But I really like the old Radagast model. I think he's a really cool model. I like his look and his feel and the bird, the raven on him, his staff, it all is very cool. And the cloak is very cool. So yeah, I think he's a very cool model. And I quite like his profile as well in that he is a wizard with immobilized, but he doesn't have the same as Gandalf and Saruman. He has doesn't have command, instead he has Awe of Dismay and Panic Steed, which can still be very handy. But yeah, I thought given the woodland theme and that he was released in the Fall of Necromancer that I could kind of include him in this army showcase. So in terms of a list for these models, generally if I was playing competitively I'd mix these with my Galadhrim models, but to go all Wood Elf, it's very easy to make a 500 point list. You obviously get rid of Radagast, but essentially using either Legolas or the Captain plus Thranduil and then all of these models is about a 500 point list. So if you take Legolas, then you wouldn't be able to upgrade the archers to 2+ or give throwing weapons to the elves. If you take the Captain, then you do have those spare points. Obviously if you're playing it competitively you'd put in Legolas, but as I said, if I was just doing a cool themed force, then potentially I would just put the Captain and Thranduil in. So yeah, I've used this list reasonably often back in my earlier days of playing tournaments when I wanted to take something that was reasonably competitive so I didn't get slaughtered by more experienced players at a tournament. And it did very, very well for me. In the first tournament that I ever did was a doubles tournament. I took a variety of elves alongside my friend Christopher's dwarves, and that was a mix of Galadhrim and Wood Elves, and that didn't do particularly well. And again, I was using unnamed captains. I think Rumel was the only named captain I had in that. But I later took 1,000 points to Throne of Skulls, which was all of these elves, so Legolas, Thranduil, not the Captain, not the Sentinels, but then all of the Wood Elves in the banner. And then I took kind of the same number of Galadhrim with, it will have been Galadriel, Haldir and Rumel and some Galadhrim court. And that 1,000 point list managed to win Throne of Skulls by winning 5 out of 5 games, which was amazing. And every single one of them was very, very close up until the end. So I guess the thing with Wood Elves is sometimes it can feel bad playing them, but they can go down quickly and you can break them with their low defense. But yeah, I really enjoyed using them at that stage when I was playing with them early on. They're definitely a bit more of a challenge to play when you're first starting out because that low defense can be very unforgiving of mistakes. But the thing that I guess I dislike about the Elven army is that you really want to be avoiding combat to start with. So you really want to be kind of staying away from the enemy and shooting, and that's can be a bit tedious and also a bit annoying for your opponent. So I've sometimes said in games, this is where I'm setting up, I'm going to shoot you, but I'm not going to run away from you. Once you hit me, you hit me. But yeah, I think that this army itself is very good. but it gets even better at higher points cost when you can get Galadriel in there for the blinding light to help with the defense, with the low defense in terms of being shot at, and for that immobilize. The thing that this can really hurt this army is hurling. So you definitely want to be shutting down monsters, and Galadriel is a very, very effective way of doing that. Otherwise, you have to risk Legolas and Thranduil getting into combat, which isn't necessarily what you want with these guys. Anything else to say about this army? I'm actually talking to you, Damien, at this point. Yeah.
No, you should tell them that you won Throne of Skulls by being most charming as well.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So not everyone who uses the army uses it like a joke.
Yeah. So going back to the Throne of Skulls. So as I said, I kind of said that I wouldn't necessarily back away all the time, and that worked out really well for me because I won all 5 of my games, but I also received 4 of the 5 sporting votes, which was amazing. In my first ever singles tournament. And one of those votes came from GBHL Jamie. The first time we ever met was at that tournament. We played in the first round and it was his Wood Elves against my Wood Elves. His was a pure Wood Elf force and it had Gandalf the Grey on Shadowfax. Mine was all Elves but with Galadrim and had Galadriel instead of Gandalf, and I managed to beat him, which was amazing. Yeah, and it was a really fun tournament and some very tough games. But yeah, I was absolutely chuffed to win all 5 at an event, which I think about 6 people did, because of the nature of Throne of Skulls. It's not Swiss ranked; it was random opponents. But how I'd done relative to my faction helped to some part, but actually my faction had done reasonably well in terms of the average of the Free People's faction. But what pipped it for me is that you got tournament points by being most sporting for your sporting votes, and because I had 4 of them, that leapfrogged me into the lead over everybody else. So that was a very, very cool thing to win from my perspective. Throne of Skulls, given that I hadn't really been close to winning a tournament before I entered that event. So yeah, I think that's it for this Wood Elf Army showcase. I hope, bless you, Damien. I hope that you've enjoyed watching this, and yeah, I mean, I don't know how inspiring it'll be in terms of the painting, but hopefully it gives you an idea of what a smallish Wood Elf force looks like. So that's it for our Fall of the Necromancer week. I hope you enjoyed all of the content that we've been giving you. I'm just going to kind of pan over the army whilst we kind of say farewell to the series. Hope you've enjoyed going through the sourcebook with us. It was a bit of a trip down memory lane for Damien and I, but if so maybe it was the same for you, but if it's kind of new to you, then we'd definitely advise getting the sourcebook and the White Dwarfs from that period, because they are awesome. So as ever, don't forget to comment, like, share and subscribe. Support Jamie on Patreon, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. Support your Hobbit hobby, and happy
strategy battle gaming.
Yeah, that's the one.